The GallowgateShots podcast is sponsored by Tyre Spot, the North East's leading tyre supplier with branches across the region. Tyre Spot don't just do tyres, they cover everything from servicing to wheel alignment. They can handle every aspect of your car's maintenance. For more information, visit tyrespot.co.uk. Enjoy the episode.
Welcome back to the GallowgateShots YouTube channel. My name is Matthew and thank you for being here for another episode of Beyond the Lines. It's the show where we get an opposition supporter's view when it comes to previewing Newcastle's next game. And this Sunday, 4 o'clock, it's the game that some are dubbing the Dan Gosling Derby as Newcastle take on Everton at St James's Park. And to help me preview this one, I'm joined by a very special guest. He is a stand-up comedian. He is a podcast host. He was also the other half of the Cooligans, but more importantly, he is a big Everton supporter. Last week, it was Alexis Guerrero's. This week, we complete the set. It's the brilliant, it's the beautiful, it's Christian Polanco, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you so much for the introduction. Yes, Alexis did say, I saw in the intro of his episode that you overuse beautiful and brilliant. And I'll just say this. I think you meant it when you said it in regards to me over him. So it was a little bit more believable. So thank you so much.
Yeah, I mean, given Arsenal beat us last week, I'll definitely say I meant it for you and not him now. Maybe if we'd have got 3 points against Arsenal, I'd have been a bit more even. But
yeah, and you definitely needed those points a lot more than they did.
Yes, and that's what I was just about to say. I mean, one thing I failed to mention in the intro, it's the last game of the season, ladies and gentlemen, and your man here is. I'm very nervous. That don't be wrong. It's our fate is in our hands comfortably. Sure. But yes, and we've played in some big pressure games this season. But we're jumping ahead. We're already predicting what's going on. We'll get on to how nervous I am and the fact it's only Tuesday and I'm already having sleepless nights about a game on Sunday. But Christian, thank you so much for your time. As last week's episode, if you haven't seen it, please still check it out because. Alexis came on, he was an Arsenal fan, and he's half of the Cooligans podcast with yourself. And for half the podcast, we spoke about football in the US and how popular it's gotten over the last couple of decades. So it's still very much worth a re-listen if you haven't listened to it already. But yeah, Christian, you're a New York native as well, aren't you?
Yes. Born in Queens, New York, raised in Brooklyn, and somehow found my way into as a toffee. I'll explain it if you want me to.
I'm sure you. I'll definitely ask you how you got affiliated with Everton. But let's open with talking about the US again. It's fascinating for me. I spoke to Alexis about this. I've met plenty of American football fans and over in like New York as well. I watched games in New York, and your enthusiasm so infectious. Yet also your knowledge of the game is pretty great as well. It would be so easy as an English native to be like, yeah, they're into it, but they don't really know their stuff. I listen to your podcast. It's evident that you very much know your football, not just Premier League, but Europe and your native game at the MLS. We talked about, me and Alexis, about how soccer's got so big over the last 2 decades, and a lot of it was to do with, you mentioned watching it on Saturday mornings. It just became essential viewing for a lot of the public, watching Premier League games Saturday mornings and throughout the day and on the Sundays as well. But one thing we failed to mention was a little old thing happening next year, and that's the World Cup.
Yeah,
it's just this little tournament. It's no big deal. But obviously, you guys are sharing hosting.
It's no Club World Cup. But,
yeah,
you know.
Do not get me started on that. That is a whole different kind of worms. But alas, the World Cup next year, like I said, hosting it with Canada and Mexico. Do you think that's going to really fan the flames of even getting football, soccer, whatever you want to call it, more popular in the US?
Yeah, look, it's an easy yes. It is something that even when there's World Cups that North America is not hosting, it is just as infectious. It doesn't matter what time of day. I'll have friends and family that have no interest in the game wake up at 7 in the morning, 6 in the morning to watch Romania take on Belgium or something. Like they all of a sudden become obsessed. It is for a lot of people, the 1994 World Cup held in the United States was that milestone, that marker that got them into the sport. So that's really, we can only expect that will be mimicked. And on, you would imagine kids between 10 and 18 or something like that will, in the next decade, will have that same origin story of how they got into the game. Oh, the 2026 World Cup was the thing that got me into the sport. So that's what I'm excited about for people like us who are just sickos, football sickos, who are just, we're in the bubble all the time. To me, the sport, even in the United States, is the most popular sport in the world. Everyone I talk to, they're always asking me about the game. I'm going to matches. They always seem really excited. So it can feel very insular, and I think the interesting thing, and it might be this way in the UK as well, where the football content creator world is fairly small. It's bigger than here.
Mm-hmm.
It's fairly small, so everyone, and it sometimes feels like it's bigger than it actually is, and it's on the minds of people more than it actually is. But that there's going to be a slight uptick in interest, and I already sort of see it from casuals, but it's going to be obviously at an exponential level next year.
And I mean, I've got to ask, I mean, have you got much hope for the national team? Do you think that they might go deep in the tournament with having the backing of the host country?
My
host population?
To be honest, I hope for the best, and I've said this several times on the show. I think, not to get too serious too quickly, but I think that the nature of and the state of the world, state of the country, geopolitics, everything going on, I would be surprised if the players can sort of put that aside and just play. Politics and especially international football are hand in hand. I mean, it's really difficult to separate, whether it's, supporters getting frustrated with other countries or other fans or whatever. And I'm like hoping for a good showing, because, we've interviewed a lot of the national team players. We know them. I want them to do well. And my concern is, where's the state of the world going to be in 2026? And can they put that aside to just play, a few matches? But I'm hoping for the best.
That's a great point, mate. And I won't turn this into a sour podcast, but it is a great point, the way things are going, not just over your way, but over here and in far-flung corners of the earth. Mm-hmm. Like, it is a bit mental. So hopefully, it doesn't affect it too much. I mean, hopefully these problems are rectified first and foremost around the world. Yeah. Who gives a crap about football when it comes to humanity and all that stuff? Yeah. Look, I'm getting deep. We're getting deep already. Yeah. One thing I will say, I mean, if you want to go far, obviously, don't be sticking Diana Ross on penalties again. Don't be doing that.
No, that's I mean, look, she's in the Hall of Fame for a reason. No. Yeah, I mean, that's one of the most iconic moments, I think, in World Cup history, and it's something I've like revisited. If people haven't seen this video, but my favorite part is taking the penalty and then the goalpost collapsing and falling apart.
Kicked it that hard. There was like a centrifugal force around the ball that just decimated the goal. Amazing. That's one of the only things I remember. Fox, of course, England weren't there. England went at that World Cup. So hopefully we're at next year's. I think we're already confirmed to be there, aren't we? I don't know. Mm-hmm. I always forget about what we're qualifying for in these games sometimes when we play in international breaks, because I'm not the biggest fan of the international break until it becomes to the actual major tournament. You know what I mean?
I get it. I mean, I've having gone to Liverpool, I don't know if in Newcastle's like this, but in Liverpool, I was fairly surprised with how little people care about the English national team. I don't know if that's specific to Liverpool, but they were like, no, I don't really.
Yeah, it kind of is. It kind of is. I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, I'm sure there's plenty of people up in the northeast who, it's there. And I'm always, I'll go on record. I've always been club over country. Yeah. I'd love to see England win a World Cup. Of course, and I love watching the matches when they're on. But I'd have traded 10 World Cups just for that League Cup win this season for Newcastle. So, but yeah, I mean, in Liverpool, they're very much, there's a lot of people that don't see themselves as English. They see themselves as Scouse, And hey, man, more power to them, because, like a lot of places up in the north of England, they've been left behind sometimes as as times went on, and
Sure.
yeah, but I know a few Scousers who still, when England are on, they'll watch England and be like, oh, if they went out, never mind. But there is a little bit of a dilution of English, like sort of English national team support there, and but yeah, I mean, I digress. But let's I want to move on to the MLS for a little bit as well, because you guys are big NYCFC fans, aren't you?
Sure.
I mean, obviously they're quite a young team or franchise, as you guys say. Like they were founded in like 2013. Obviously, it goes without saying that they're part of that sort of City Group umbrella. How are they doing? How are they getting on? How have they been as a club? Are they still progressing? Are they seen as a proper project? One thing I am interested in knowing is being under this City umbrella, has it hindered them, or is it a good thing in terms of like finances and stuff like that?
It's good on finances, but finances in Major League Soccer don't really provide an advantage. You can't so you can, they have the 3 designated player rule, so you can have 3 players that don't affect the salary cap, but there is a salary cap for the roster, so you can't just sign whatever player you want whenever you want. Every team has to meet this salary cap, and if they are above it, they suffer like severe penalties. So the positive and the best thing about being under the City Football Group network is the scouting network, and they're always bringing in players. They can bring in players from very easily from Japan, from the Yokohama, I believe, and then they have a team in Uruguay. They have a team obviously in Manchester City.
Mm-hmm.
There's a little bit of, if a player they don't think is ready for Man City, they can bring them to one of those other clubs, and New York City FC is one of those clubs that tends to happen with. So. Yeah. Overall, it's been look. They won MLS Cup in 2021. One of the best moments of my supporterdom. And it's been look. I always say, like, New York City FC is the first club I ever supported. That was where I learned how to be a supporter. And then when I was like choosing a Premier League team, it was like I had no real connection with any club. Tim Howard had just had the World Cup he had in 2014. I'm like, all right, well, where's he playing? I remember watching him when I was a kid, watching Metro Stars, because the Metro Stars were before they rebranded and became New York Red Bull. So right. I used to see Tim Howard, and then he went to Manchester United. And then I hadn't really heard of him, and because I didn't follow English football, and then at the time when I'm choosing a Premier League team, he's the one there. I'm like, all right, Tim Howard, I'm gonna support Everton. Everybody was like, do not do that. They don't win anything. You're just gonna suffer. I did a stand-up show the other day, last week, and a guy, there was a British guy in the crowd, and I'm talking to him. I'm like, hey, where you from? He's like, I'm from Brighton. And I'm like, hey, are you Brighton Hove supporter? He's like, yes, I am. And then I said, I'm an Everton supporter. And I said something like, what? Can you believe that? And he's like, yes, I can believe it. You look like you love suffering. I'm like, hey, buddy, take it easy. So there's I had plenty of reasons to not choose Everton as if I could have picked any team. Plenty of people told me to not pick Everton, but in hindsight, it is one of the best decisions I've ever made. I've especially Everton are playing in the United States this summer for their preseason tour, and they've done that 2 or 3 other times since I started supporting them, and it is like this pilgrimage of all the American Everton supporters, and some some come from Liverpool, and to watch the team, and it's the just kindest, most supportive people. And yes, they're passionate about the club. There's banter between, Liverpool Football Club and all that stuff. But there is I thought, especially when I was in Liverpool, I thought people were going to be like, oh, what is this dumb American? Why, why are you here? And it was the complete opposite. Everybody was like, you chose this club when you didn't have to. It's like they feel bad for me. They're like, I was born into this. I can't believe you chose this for yourself. But it's always a tinge of sarcasm, but there's always a lot of warmth and love, and that's been like one of the coolest part about being an Everton supporter.
Well, that's the, I guess, especially, I've met American fans who maybe have some sort of connection with the city back in England, they've got family there or something like that. But if you were passionate about the sport and you want to be, in the fandom of the biggest league in the world, I don't think anyone can begrudge you that. I think there's always going to be idiots. There's always going to be idiots. Oh, the Americans don't know how. I'm definitely not one of them, and the majority aren't. I think the only thing that it needs to be backed up with is loyalty. Do you know, like you've said, you chose Everton, right? Well, I've nailed my colours to the mast now. That's my team. And everyone's like, "Oh, you shouldn't have done that because you're not going to win it." Well, you've done it now, and and you've become ingratiated with like parts of the city and the people when you go and visit it. And yeah, I think that's absolutely awesome. And I think, like you say, for the majority, they see that as like, wow, you chose our club. That's so cool. And I'm sure you've just said you experienced that. Before we move on to talking about Everton in full and the game and stuff, I was curious to talk about the quality of the football in the MLS, the quality of players in the MLS, because obviously we spoke about through the years it became this sort of quote unquote retirement home for bigger stars.
Right.
They do bring their star power. Obviously, you've got Lionel Messi doing his thing with his band of brothers who, they've got, was Busquets the manager now, or is he still playing?
No, Busquets the manager. Busquets
Mascherano's the manager.
Mascherano, yeah.
Busquets is playing Jordi Alba, Luis Suarez, crazy. And then you've got, Gareth Bale doing his thing before he retired, David Beckham, obviously way back when, and all those players. But, as the league's grown, have you seen sort of the quality grow in the football, but also the homegrown players? I mean, or the players that it's attracting at a younger age instead of these like older stars?
100%. Yeah, that's been one of my favorite parts of supporting my local club, and you guys get to experience this and seeing the academy kids come through, and maybe they get sold somewhere or whatever. But the quality has immediately grown. I mean, in the 10 years of New York City FC's existence, when I'm watching every single game from that first year, yes, David Villa was there, Andrea Pirlo, Frank Lampard, and even Villa was definitely still had it, and he was way above the level of the league. Lampard was kind of on his last legs. Pirlo barely showed up. He
broke a sweat.
Yes. We clapped for him when he stepped on the pitch, and he did, and the club was thankful for that. But there's so many great stories. I mean, Jack Harrison is a great example, who is now at Everton. Yep. He was drafted by the Chicago Fire, and we have a draft in Major League Soccer. It doesn't really, it's not super relevant to the players that end up succeeding per se, but it's they go from college to the league. And he got drafted by Chicago Fire, then immediately traded to New York City FC. And then look at where his career has gone. It's fantastic. He was at Leeds, and obviously they got relegated, but he then is on loan at Everton. I don't know if he's going to stay. I hope he does. But the other examples, James Sands, who is an academy player, who is now who was on loan at FC St. Pauli in Bundesliga, and there's been a couple of those stories. So you see when players, especially from like academy players, let's say, who get national team call ups and all these things, like it makes me so proud of my team in MLS, but also you see that the quality of the league and the foundational stuff of development and academies and those things are sort of kind of bearing their fruit now. But again, another example, Inter Miami are, I think they haven't won. They're winless in like 5 or 6. It's like, yeah, Lionel Messi played all those games, and he's playing against some American players, some international players, but this retirement league stuff doesn't really work. You can't bring these old players anymore and think that you're gonna thrive, because the level is now too high for those older players that can't really counter press, that can't really defend and stuff like that. So that we're sort of seeing that now, that it's getting difficult for those older players.
One of the success stories I always liked, and I don't know if this speaks to, obviously it was a few years ago now, but and I don't know if this proves my point or not, but was the rise of Bradley Wright Phillips, man. I loved that. Like, because I managed to see him in the flesh at I'd seen him playing like over here for but I went to New York and I went to the Red Bull Stadium, and it was when his brother had just signed as well, and obviously his brother barely kicked a ball for them, but Bradley Wright Phillips, is he still the leading MLS goal scorer of all time? Is he something stupid like that?
He's like, I think third. He's like third or fourth.
All right, fair.
It could be a little. So yeah, plenty of goals. It might be like seventh or something like that. Yeah. But because he is if you watch I don't know if you have Apple TV, if you watch MLS, he's on the he's one of the pundits on the show. And yeah, Bradley Wright Phillips is somebody who we've had on the show. He was on the show a few months ago, but one of the few people that I had to learn to not hate. You know,
because he's from the other New York team.
Yes, because he's ruined my days so many times. He's ruined so many afternoons and evenings. Just either, the infamous we call it the Red Bull wedding. It was when Red Bull defeated NYCFC 7-0.
The Red Bull wedding. That's your man here. I get it. There might be some people listening who get it.
Right.
You don't get it. You're probably going to say it's nerd stuff, but whatever. Awesome.
So it is one of the worst experiences. It was this, I believe, was it the second season? It was the second season of it. So it was 2016 and 7-0 at home. And it was one of the most difficult experiences to experience. Bradley Wright Phillips, I think, had 2 goals, and he might have 1 bicycle kick in that game, I think. But yeah, he is what I appreciate about Bradley Wright Phillips is that he brings that English football culture to American soccer. And just an example, we had an issue recently. I think you may have heard about it on the show if you were listening to the podcast.
Yes, is this the LAFC, LA Galaxy? Please, for the listeners, please.
Yes. So there's a player that obviously who joined the rival club, and in MLS it's not exactly the same. The players they can't force a move the way they can do in Europe. So he essentially gets traded to the rival team. The former team, they just won the championship, so they give him his ring. They have a championship ring. You guys have medals, so we do championship rings. But they gave him the ring right before the derby, and Bradley Wright Phillips was on on the world broadcast talking about how he despises the fact that this is a thing. Why would they give him the ring right before the game? They shouldn't even do it at all. So I love that, because the other pundits, the American pundits, were like, no, this was a nice gesture. They should have done it. And Bradley Wright Phillips is like, no, get that out of the game. We don't need that.
It's because he's trying to instill that history and that nastiness in it. Because imagine, obviously, that's probably never happen. But, imagine, Newcastle win a trophy, which we did, which was great. Just to remind people. We win a trophy, and we then sell one of the players to Sunderland. We play Sunderland in the Premier League, and they're like, "Oh, by the way, here's your medal on the pitch." Right. What's going on here?
It's psychotic. Yeah. And we need some of that. I think some of it. Look, it's obviously a little bit toxic, a little bit unhealthy. We all know that, but it's again. You mentioned the word loyalty, and you mentioned those things are important to fan bases, and it has to be handled delicately. It can't be that aloof and thinking that nobody's going to be bothered by it. So so that's what I love that about BWP.
Well, we can certainly be a sensitive bunch, us football fans, to be fair. You know what I mean? Whether we start crying on social media or start punching someone in the face, it's still it could all be invoked by the same thing: a negative football result or someone not doing the right thing for the football club. But one other question: is there anyone in the MLS at this moment in time that's like flying under the radar? That it doesn't have to be an American; it could be someone from the surrounding area. But that's someone that you think that kid could end up playing in Europe or in the Premier League. And is anyone you've got your eye
on? There's a couple. So there's a few players. There's a few players that are playing in MLS that I'm like, why are you here? Like, you can, you're sort of sometimes when players are that good, I'm like, you're above this. So, and I don't think he's going to go back to Europe, but Carlos Heel from the New England Revolution, he's a number 10. just a left-footed genius, like on the pitch. And I've spoken to players that when I asked them who do you hate defending against, and several players have been like Carlos Hill. You can't get the ball off of him. He's just absolutely brilliant. So he's one of those guys. He came from La Liga, and he's not going to go back. I don't think. He's a little bit older. But a couple of younger guys. So Brian White, he is an American. He's currently playing with the Vancouver Whitecaps. He is the leading goal scorer on their team. He's fantastic. He's getting a much more interest in. He also played with BWP at Red Bull. He is. It looks like he's gonna. We have the Gold Cup here, so our domestic regional tournament.
Mm-hmm.
So he's probably gonna get a call up and get an opportunity because he seems to be the best American striker that's in form right now. I mean, I could go on, man. Yeah,
I've opened Pandora's box there.
There's a lot of really good players. Diego Luna from Real Salt Lake is another number 10 that's really good, and another American player. Quinn Sullivan from the Philadelphia Union. He has a younger brother, the youngest ever player, Kevin Sullivan, who is also with the Philadelphia Union, but he already has a pre-agreement with Manchester City. So he like had that agreement when he was, I believe, 15 or 14. Mm-hmm. But he's going to be at Philadelphia Union for the next 2 years, and then he's going to be at Manchester City probably after the World Cup. So yeah, there's an incredible amount of talent in the league.
One name just popped in my head there as well that I was surprised went over to America was Herman Lozano, the winger. He went
Chucky, yeah.
Yeah. I was surprised because I remember signing him on FIFA. I know that does not sound like my knowledge is great. Like I've watched him play Champions League games for like Napoli and PSV, but I remember signing him and being like, I wonder if he'll ever be in the Premier League. But he went over to your place. So there you go.
Yeah, it's interesting because he's I think he still has a lot to offer, and he's been basically shut out of the national team for some reason. He doesn't get any call ups. I don't know if he doesn't want to go, but the last maybe 5-6 years. There's been a lot of drama. They did this with Chicharito Hernandez. They did this with Carlos Vela, where they just have these falling out, and the players might still be contributing to their clubs, and the national team is actually struggling, and they don't call them in, and they can't. They usually never reveal what happened.
Yeah.
The rumor is that something happened after the 2018 World Cup. That there was a party and blah blah blah, and that the federation hasn't forgiven these players, and this is all alleged. I don't know if what happened or didn't happen, but it's very odd when the national team is struggling and then the players are playing well for their clubs and they don't get called in. So, but Chucky seems to be one of those players.
So, we've done a while on American soccer here, by the way. So it's all great stuff. But we'll talk about this big game on Sunday. Yeah. It may not be big to you guys, but it's.
I got my mug, buddy.
Nice mug, bro.
Thanks, fam.
No, but no. In all seriousness, Everton, they've been through the ringer the last few seasons. Really skated with that relegation for a while. I really think that they're on the sort of
more of a mini skirt, what I mean?
a mini skirt. I've just pictured Sean Dyche in a mini skirt there. Cheers for that. But the man who sort of seems to have steadied the ship, Mr. David Moyes, the guy who looks like Mo Sislak from The Simpsons.
Right.
But he's. I've always had a bit of respect for David Moyes, albeit he did manage down the road in Sunderland for a brief spell, but he took them down, so who cares? Yeah. But he was previously at Everton, a lot of pedigree at Everton. Got them finished 4th one time and really kicked them on. My first question was, I mean, obviously you'd have been supporting them then in that first spell. Were you sad to see him go? But then when they started saying he's going to come back all this time later, were you happy to see him?
So just to clarify, I wasn't supporting them in that first spell. My first introduction to the manager of Everton was Roberto Martinez. So that's how I got into it. And so I'll be honest, I 100% was not happy with this decision. I thought it was going to be a mistake. He wasn't doing very well at West Ham. Given that Sean Dyche kept us up the previous season, I thought like, oh, this could work. I mean, there's some signs that we had a couple victories, but it was getting to a point where there was almost no offense. It wasn't even prioritized. It was like, get a clean sheet, boys, and
the rest of bonus,
and the rest and the rest will figure itself out. And I think it just reached a boiling point where it was like there's actual quality here. There's players that can go forward if they're just unbridled a little bit. So players like Dwight McNeil, Iliman Ndiaye, Jack Harrison, Beto, like these guys, they're not necessarily superstars, but they have quality enough to put a couple chances, in goal. And and Moyes, I think he just got there and just said, "Hey, Tarky, he'll take care of whatever he needs to care. Braithwaite, they got it. Just have a little bit more fun out there." And that's when what I noticed immediately. As soon as he got there, you could tell, and we had Iliman Ndiaye on the show recently, and you can just see there's a little bit of joy and pride in playing for the club again. And the players were never that critical publicly of Sean Dyche, but you can see in their play afterwards that was the criticism. It's like
the shackles are off.
Yeah, thank you. Let me just do what I can do, and so we got a lot better results after Moyes came in.
I was going to mention about your podcast with Iliman Ndiaye. So there you go. These guys get all the guests.
I don't believe it either, man. I don't know.
Well, if you could do us a favor and just get on the below to him, give him a call, and just be like, Iliman, just how about you don't have to.
I'll say this on air. If I can probably connect you with DeAndre Yedlin if you want that.
We would love that.
I will try. I'll try my best.
Well, I was just saying, will you get hold of Iliman Ndiaye and just say if you could just phone it in at the weekend?
Yeah, that too.
You don't want to get injured for next season. You've got a holiday ahead of you.
Exactly. You're playing in the US. You don't want Christian to miss out the opportunity to see you in person.
Yeah. So yeah, just look after yourself first and foremost. But no, hey, watch this space. I mean, I won't hold you to it, because that's a big, But,
it's a bit. I'm not gonna hold myself to it either. I'm not gonna hold myself to to making sure it happens. I don't know if it'll happen, but I'll say this. I know his one of his representatives very well, and I can put in the ask. And
let's not get people too excited, but little wink there. We've just mentioned Ndiaye there, and he scored 2 goals last week, and that was in the last game ever at Goodison Park. Monumental day in football. It's obviously a very historical stadium. It's been there for so long, and it's rooted in history. Big, nice ground they're going to next season. I know you're not a Liverpool native, obviously, but you obviously understand the gravitas behind moving to a new ground. We've seen in our lifetimes Arsenal move from Highbury to the Emirates, and that had its teeth and issues. And I still feel like Tottenham have had theirs as well. Do you see Everton struggling to sort of having a bit of teething issues next season, and just coupled with that, the squad's in a state of flux as well. When I was watching them play, not sure if Doucouré is staying. Obviously, he
literally just announced, I think, like 2 hours ago that he's done with the club.
Well, there you go. So he's going. I mean, I'm not saying he's been a huge player, but he's been at the heart of that midfield for quite some time now.
5 years,
and there's other players. You've got Ashley Young. Is he leaving at the end of the season, or is he staying on? But
he's out. Yeah, he also announced he's leaving.
Yeah. So you've just got all these changes. You couple that with a new stadium, it could be this dawn of a new era. But I say that word, teething issues again. Do you have any sort of concerns around that?
I'm not as concerned about the club or the squad themselves, because I think yes, Doucouré has done I think an incredible service to the club. He has scored some very, very important goals that have kept the team up. So, but Ashley Young, with all due respect, he can barely he can barely defend against the defenders 2-3 years younger than him, or players 2-3 years younger than he is clearly there for more of a veteran presence and the experience, but he's not the player that the club needs going forward. I mean, the big issue, and a lot of Arsenal had this issue when before they moved to the Emirates, but when I went to Goodison Park and I was speaking to a lot of the staff, they were like, "Hey, we have 20 to 30,000 on the season ticket waiting list. We need a bigger stadium. There is money that they are missing out on earning from the gate every single match, that they need to move. They needed to move to a new stadium. So outside of the Goodison Park issues, which is like every seat is obstructed by a goddamn pillar. You can't. I remember if we did in what was in 2022, we went to Goodison Park. We filmed a mini documentary with Everton versus Arsenal, which you can watch if you look up the Cooligans Goodison Park on YouTube. You'll find it, and it's one of the proudest things we've ever done.
Nice.
But I'm filming myself. I have like a little selfie camera thing, and I'm filming myself from the home end, and Alexis is in the away end. So we sort of, every time there's a goal or any kind of call, we see both perspectives. But if you're watching my end of it, I'm like looking around. I'm like, who did Richarlison score? Was that offside? I'm like, it's unwatchable. I mean, not unwatchable, but it's very frustrating. So now to not have these obstructed views, I think is something that the fans are going to be really happy about.
Class. Well, like I said, big game Sunday, travelling up to St. James's Park, last day of the season. Hopefully, I'm praying, I'm really trying to will this into existence, that most of your team are either off the field through injury or on the beach mentally. How do you see this unfolding? I mean, obviously, there's no pressure on Everton, so it could go one of two ways, probably.
Right.
But, they did get a couple of injuries in that final game at Goodison. I think Branthwaite went off with the hamstring, and Seamus Coleman sadly had his last game at Goodison cut short. But how do you see this going? Are you concerned at all, or is it just a case of, are you on the beach as well?
Yeah, there's a little bit of that. This season has oddly been not as adrenaline filled, because we haven't had to worry about relegation. This has been the first time in several years where that wasn't. It's always until either the last match of the season or the penultimate match of the season. And so for this particular match, I am nervous, but it's mostly nervous about facing Alexander Isak, because the last time we faced him, he absolutely cooked us. I think that's still one of his better highlights. The dribble through
one at Goodison Park. The one a couple of seasons
dude,
ago. Yeah, it was
brutal. And he's always given us a lot of trouble. So this, and now at St. James Park, you guys should win this game. I'd be surprised if you did not. But yeah, Everton tends to be, especially since Moyes got there, been a much more difficult team to score a bunch of goals on. I mean, I think one of the results that did Dyche in was the result at Old Trafford. It was a 4-0 loss, which is just like, you're the defensive guy. This can't be this can't be happening. So I look, there's not too much to pick apart in this game. Newcastle desperately need to win, or even a draw.
I couldn't take the draw. I need the win. I can't be having a draw and then people on like walkie-talkies or radios going,
exactly,
it's 1-1 Forest Chelsea. My heart can't take it. We need to win. We need to win.
It should be a Newcastle win. Look, Everton, especially with the few injuries they have, I think it's Tarkowski being out. That's probably then it's going to be Michael Keane starting, and Michael Keane I only trust him going forward. I don't trust him to defend. He always makes some kind of error, or is not communicating with his like center back or whoever he is in the center back pairing with. So that's my thought. I hate to say as an Everton fan, but I'm expecting an Everton loss.
Well, I mean, I hope you're right, first and foremost.
Yeah,
But it's a bit of a strange. I mean, you've mentioned Alexander Isak there. Bit of a strange time he's going through the last 4 or 5 games. Hasn't looked himself and actually missed the game against Arsenal. And it's touch and go whether he actually might play on Sunday. So it might be Callum Wilson leading the line. I'd like to think we still have enough to get over the line. But just as the seasons came into these last 4 or 5 fixtures, I was sort of confident after the Chelsea game, but we just keep getting hit by injuries. The fact that we don't have Kieran Trippier anymore, who's such a talismanic player for us, who keeps everyone right on the pitch. The fact that, we haven't got Joe Linton, who's just this absolute Frankenstein's monster of a footballer now, who can really put the fear of God into a midfield. But I'd like to think with the midfield we've got, and our players on the wings, and that brings me to one player before we sign off, in Mr. Anthony Gordon. I'd like to think we've got enough to win, but Anthony Gordon, I don't even know if I'd start him at the weekend, because he had a very strange, if not poor, game against Arsenal since he's came back into the fold after he got suspended before the cup final. Harvey Barnes really took the ball and ran with it, and I think they're trying to sort of force them all into this team, and he just doesn't do well against Everton since he's came to Newcastle. He obviously missed a penalty at Goodison Park this season and snatched at a couple of chances that he'd normally bury. So whether he can play and have his home crowd really up behind him and be a different player, I don't know. But you mentioned Anthony Gordon on the podcast, and he's still there's a little bit of, I wouldn't say bitterness. It's more of it just a sort of he left under a cloud, didn't he?
Yeah, it's just a bitter taste in I think everyone's mouth, and the interviews I've seen recently of him being so callous about playing for Everton and being less about my family, they're all Liverpool, and they didn't really care for the club, and they wanted me to score, but they wanted the team to lose. And I get it. I mean, but it's gonna lead. Again, every game he's played at Goodison Park since, the fans, they give him stick. They give him a lot of pressure, and he's gonna have to deal with that. So, in my opinion, you probably, in a game that you need to win, I wouldn't start him. I think the pressure gets to him, and I think it's something. It's he wants to shut them up, and when you play with that in your mind, you're missing the bigger picture.
And I think that was the most predictable penalty I've ever seen in my life. When he stepped up, I'm not saying it was written all over his face, but you're just thinking, nothing against him, because he's been an absolutely brilliant player for us. A bit of a mixed season this season, but last season, oh my God, he was so good. I just sort of felt like he had that miss in him, like 99 times out of 100. And then the fact that it's not just and then he wouldn't have been bothered about this, but as a Newcastle fan, you've got that geezer in goal, Jordan Pickford, and you're just thinking, oh well, he's going to save it, and hopefully the Jordan Pickford of a few seasons back, who used to get very affected by the St. James's Park crowd, as of late, he sort of seemed to have really give us it back. I think last season when we drew 1-1, late penalty by Dominic Calvert-Lewin, I believe, equaliser. He was fantastic, Jordan Pickford, absolutely fantastic. So I feel like he sort of has gone the opposite way. Like, he used to really affect him, and now he's just like, I'm up for it. So we'll see if he starts. Given it's the last game of the season, I'm hoping Moyes wants to make loads of fancy changes and give people who don't get a game a game. I'm really willing this into existence, Christian.
Pickford plays in like every Leagues Cup. Every league mate game, every so I'd be surprised if he does it.
Yeah, we'll see. But if you want to get what score prediction off the top of your head.
I'm gonna say, given how important the game is to Newcastle, and all the injuries that Everton have, I think this should be a fairly easy game for Newcastle. I'm gonna say 3-1 Newcastle.
God, I hope you don't score first.
I would just be genuinely surprised, given the roster of the players that are available for Everton, that if they could even get a win, which would be a miracle in my opinion, and then if they could score more than one goal, given the how significant and important this game is for Newcastle. So that's my genuine thought.
Oh, God, I hope you're right, but I just have this weird feeling, man. But like I said, we've had some big games this season, and we've shown up for pretty much every one of our big games. yes, we've had more of a squad, so we'll see. I mean, we've got our own injuries. God, I'm just it's a Tuesday afternoon, Tuesday evening here in the UK, and I'm already thinking about losing sleep over a game on Sunday. Crazy stuff.
Right now, for me, as an Everton fan, the proudest like I feel is that we're going to be finishing above Manchester United. That is just one of the coolest things that I never thought I think I would ever see as an Everton fan. So I take a lot of pride in that.
No, well, hey man, you got to take away you can, but and that has been quite. But again, typical Man United, you know, fall down a hill of shit and still land on their feet because they might win the Europa League on Wednesday and end up in the Champions League. Because if we don't beat you, no disrespect, but if we don't beat Everton and get in the Champions League, and Man United somehow get in the Champions League, they already did us out of European football last season by winning the FA Cup.
Yeah.
Can't have it. Please, don't do this to me.
My goodness. Yeah.
But anyway, mate, it's been an absolute pleasure to talk to you. Thank you so much for your time. It honestly is a real pleasure. And like I said, the same to Alexis last week. And hopefully this isn't the last time we speak to you, because it's honestly such good conversations. And next time I'm over New York way, because I go over there every now and then, I'll have to give you guys a shout. But in the meantime, where can people find you? YouTube, all that stuff?
YouTube.com/Soccer Cooligans. We're on every episode come out Mondays and Thursdays. YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. You see the logo right there. That's just, you can go search that and you'll find it anywhere. But yeah, especially if you're in New York, please, you're welcome. Come to the studio. You can hang with us on the show or whatever. Just have a tea or whatever you guys do.
Don't mess with caffeine, me. Don't mess with caffeine.
I don't drink coffee either. So
just get the beers in.
Okay,
and, we'll be fine. Yeah,
much healthier. Much healthier.
Much better for you. Anyway, thank you so much, Christian. Thank you so much, everyone who has been watching. Very, very nervous times, only in my heart. I'm sure there's a lot of people going into the game on Sunday with a lot of confidence, and rightly so. We are where we are. Our destiny's in our hands, and I really pray that we show up on Sunday and comfortably qualify for the Champions League. If you're traveling at the game from afar, safe journeys to you. But in the meantime, thank you for watching. Please like the video, share the video, give me your thoughts in the comments below. If you haven't subscribed already, what you're doing, just click the button. It just takes 2 seconds. But if you want to give a little bit more back, it's $2.99 a month. You get early access to videos like this and exclusive content as well, which the guys are always pumping out, which makes it very much worth your while. But in the meantime, fingers crossed we get the result at the weekend, and we will speak to you soon.
Peace.